Hey, Raising Athletes podcast fans, Kirsten here, and I have to share my new favorite hydration secret with you. Corvive's Hydrate in pink lemonade. If you're looking for the ultimate hydration boost, this is it. Corvive's Hydrate is an NSF certified for sport, trusted by 4 Major League Baseball teams and 3 military bases. With 6 grams of pure organic cane sugar, it ensures you absorb all the electrolytes you need. And get this, it has 3 times the electrolytes and 4 times less sugar than those leading brands. Plus, it's developed using the World Health Organization's standards for oral rehydration solutions, making it the equivalent of a bag of IV fluids. Best of all, there are no artificial dyes or sweeteners. It's so perfect for the entire family. You can drink it any time of day, before, during, or after workouts or sports. So say goodbye to sugary juices and hello to superior hydration with Corvive's Hydrate in pink lemonade. Visit corvive.com. That's CORVIVE.com. And use promo code Kirsten. That's KIRSTEN for 30% off your order. Try it today and feel the difference.
Hi,
Once you know it's for real,
I know.
you're like,
Okay, let's start. Hi, I'm Kirsten Jones,
and I'm Susie Walton.
and this is our podcast, #Raising Athletes with Kirsten and Susie.
Our passion is supporting parents and raising not only strong athletes, but extraordinary people.
Join us each week as we tackle all topics youth sports, including everything from early specialization and overuse injuries
To helping our kids feel empowered and learn how to advocate for themselves, not only in the classroom and on the court, but at dinner tables and in their communities.
We'll be talking to coaches, athletes, parents,
And anyone else who will speak to us.
about their experiences with youth sports and their paths to success.
And even more importantly, their failures. Yes, we're going to get into the gritty details of what went wrong so that we can all learn from it. Teach our kids
And ourselves.
how to do better next time.
Because in the words of Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. So welcome to Raising Athletes, because we love to win too.
Let's do this.
Hello, welcome to the Raising Athletes podcast, or welcome back. My name is Kirsten Jones. I'm a peak performance and sports parenting coach. We're into the 5th year. We just had our 100th episode with Mr. Steve Kerr, which was phenomenal. And every guest I get so excited because you get different things from different people's journeys. And one thing Susie and I love diving into is not only the good, but the bad and the ugly about how do we get what we want in life. And I think a lot of what happens to us is how we decide to translate it and either use it for good to move us forward or hold on to it. And sometimes it holds us back. And sometimes we need to do that. But when we can release it and move forward, we get to create fun. And this guest, Peyton McDavitt, I'm so excited to have you on today because she's a legendary athlete, Harvard Hall of Fame field hockey player, but also she's gone on to create multiple different journeys after college.
Yeah.
A woman after my own heart, because with my Japanese major in college, which hajime mashite, dozo yoroshiku, I have never used. So I love people who also take big swings. Maybe it doesn't work out, but let's talk about your successes. In fact, you're a sister as well. I grew up
Yes.
with 2 sisters. So let's start with, welcome, A, and B, can we start with your journey and talking about what you remember of your childhood growing up with older sisters who you were trying to keep up with?
Oh, yeah. What I remember is the goalie equipment arriving in size small and being the only one who fit. Being target practice. I'm the youngest. So yeah, so target practice my whole life. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that. I love being the youngest because my sister Tina always jokes like, I paved the way. And I'm like, she really did. She got it. We all got to feel lucky really young. My mom played and my aunt played, and my aunt found a bunch of sticks actually at a flea market it was like 10 sticks for 25 cents. And she bought them. And we used to play down the beach when the tide would go out on the flats of the beach. That's where we started. And it was always just really fun. And my dad would play, but he did not take it easy on us at all. He would like hip check us into the sand and like use the wrong side of the stick. But it was all in fun. So like our love of the sport began because it's something we did as a family, something we really enjoyed doing. And then, translated to backyard, which just felt like Olympic tryouts like every single day, with my sisters. And when you're the youngest, you just want to keep up. You want to play. So
What's
I was
the age
I am going to
difference?
try so hard.
How much younger are you?
So Tina is 5.5 years older than me, and Kate is only 20 months older than me. So we have worn a lot of the same outfits and a lot of the same uniforms. So
And what level did your mom and your aunt play? Did they play in college?
no, they didn't play in college.
Okay.
My parents are still very athletic. My dad's run several marathons. My mom went on to play in the softball league after college for, it was a pretty high level softball league, and still very physical. She's on the golf travel team right now. So as you know, I'm about to have my second child, and she's like, well, let me look at my golf schedule. I'm like, okay, come out when it's good for you.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. They'll drop anything,
Yeah.
but
No, that's awesome. And
yeah.
I love both sides of that. That what I'm hearing is you fell in love with something because it was fun. It
Yeah.
wasn't, this is what we do. This is what your sister does. You need to do this.
No.
You were just exposed to something
Mhm.
that you said, well, wow, that looks like a ton of fun. My sisters like to do it. Maybe I do too.
Yeah, 100%. It was fun, and I wanted to, and in order to be able to play with my sisters, I was like, I have to be better than their friends so that they pick me for their teams. And so like that was my goal. But I can distinctly remember my mom, we were driving home from one of my middle sister Kate's basketball game, and they had lost the game by 2 points, and she had scored, I think, all but 2 points of her team's total score. And she fouled out, and she was crying in the back seat. And I remember my mom being like, if this isn't fun, we're not doing it. That's it. Like, get it together. We were so little, but it was like, that was very clear messaging of like, we're not, it wasn't like, she wasn't blaming anybody else. She was like, this is a game. This is fun. Find the joy in it. So, and we did, we found the joy in it. And all of us got to travel the world playing and make amazing friends from everywhere. And yeah.
Speaking of fun, in high school, you went 92 and 2.
92 and 2. I lost 2 games in high school. My high school was pretty incredible. Like our high school field hockey program was pretty incredible. So yeah, my sister Tina had, I think, 2 state championships. Kate had 3. I had 3. And my senior class was 15 of us, and 13 went on playing college. I think 8 of us went Division 1. And I think one thing that's really interesting is that so many of us ended up captaining our college teams.
Why?
I really owe this to my coach.
Well, yeah, what do you think contributed to that?
So my coach, there was a program in our hometown. Most people start field hockey a little bit later. But there was a summer camp that my coach started, Penny Calf. She's actually in several Hall of Fames. And she started this camp and going into 5th grade. So we had a leg up on everybody. And then we play a round robin all summer. And I got to go a year early because of my sisters. So she let me in early. And I think just having that, and then she was a great coach. She really understood. She actually never played field hockey, which is so interesting. She was a great athlete, but she just understood the game, and she understood camaraderie. She understood how to make long-term goals and how to break them down, which is really interesting because that actually translates to so much in my life right now, including like the test prep piece. So we'll get there. Making long-term goals, and she understood how each kid worked. Like for me, I will never forget the day I was having a really, really bad preseason practice senior year. It was a varsity, JV, and freshman. And it might have actually been junior year because my sister might have just graduated. And the football team was running around the field, and I was just dribbling into everybody's stick, and I was trying to do everything myself. And she was like, Peyton McDavitt, you are not Kate, my sister. But she knew she knew what was going to come of that because she knew me so well as a kid. I was like, that's it. I'm going to break every record this year. I was so mad at that comment. And then she just like knew I was going to dig deep and it was going to have a positive effect versus a negative effect. But then she knew when she had to be softer with certain kids. I really admired her and I loved her as a coach. And we had days that were really fun. And she somehow made running fun. Like we would have like running competitions. Like, she would be like, if you are wearing a thong today, you got to run across the field. And everyone would scream when somebody was running across. It was like, she just I have really funny memories of her.
Do you remember like having any fear of her, or was it just respect, or a little bit of both, or like where was the line between? Because I think now I feel like parenting and coaching becomes this like, well, I want him to be my friend and I want us to get along. And I think coaches struggle with understanding where they can draw the line, because we know that we don't want our kids to play for Bobby Knight. At the same time, you shouldn't be playing for your best friend either. Like they're your coach. They're someone you should respect. I mean, now we coach. I mean, I remember my middle school coach was like one of my heroes, and she was Mrs. Lynn. And it wasn't until, I don't know, 20 years later that I realized she had a first name, right? Like you just call her Mrs. Lynn, right? Like you never ever thought of calling her, by her first name. Yet now it's like, oh, well, I know so-and-so, our parents go on vacation together, or like the family connections become, that very casual. What are your recollections of your relationship with her?
No, I think there's a lot of respect. There definitely was a lot of, and especially in recent years, I keep in touch with her and send emails and letters back and forth. And but she drew a pretty firm boundary. And I think we all respected her. I do think there were kids that were a little fearful of her. I never felt that way because I, was so excited to play for her. And I'd come up seeing my sisters and all of these incredible athletes before me having the opportunity to play for her. So I was just excited, and I had a tremendous respect for her, and she was not trying to be our friends, and she was not trying to be cool. And I was like, great. Like, I also think, it's interesting. I think social media makes that really difficult today.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't send her an Instagram reel in high school because it didn't exist, which was nice.
Yeah, and maybe respect is the right word, because I think of that with parenting too. It's like, I don't want my kids to be afraid of me, but I want them to respect me. And as a coach, I think that's what coaches want. They just want respect, that what I say goes, and that it's not, and I'm working with some teams, younger teams now, where some of the kids are like, I don't need to listen to the rules. It doesn't apply to me. And the coaches are like, okay, what do I do with that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Really hard to navigate.
That is hard. We're so in the age of instantaneity where it's like you want something, you just click a button, you can have it.
Yeah.
I really feel like athletics is like one of those last vestiges of learning how to work really hard for something and fail and get up the next day and like hit the track. Yeah. It really, really builds that grit and really builds that muscle.
So a lot of people that listen to this, we got parents, we got athletes, we got coaches. And what I love about your story is you graduate high school, you're an All-American, you're playing the junior national team, or you almost made it to the junior national team?
I was on the under 16 and went and played and competed in the Netherlands. This is so awful. I can't even remember if I made the under 18 national team or not. But then they switched it to under 19 the next year, and then I was the first alternate, and that was heartbreaking, but also how it goes sometimes, Yeah, so part of the journey.
We were getting ready to go off to college, and two of your sisters had both played at Harvard?
No, Tina played at BU, and she captained the BU team. And then she went on to BC to get her master's, and then got another degree because now she coaches at Tufts. So let it be known she's the most educated, even though Kate and I went to Harvard. She paved the way, right?
But you have this decision to make: go to Wake Forest, who's a powerhouse in the sport, or follow your sister, who you adore and want to play with. Do you remember, if we go back to that moment when you were making that decision, what were the final? I mean, obviously, there's really nothing wrong with going to Harvard, but you're a competitor, right? Was that a difficult decision, or how do you recall it?
Because I was like, well, here's the thing: is like I have worked so hard on the field, and I've worked so hard in the classroom, and I also had this Michael and I always talk about, like, I just had this golden ticket of being an athlete, and being able to leverage that. And I was either going to go to the best academic school or I was going to go to the best field hockey school. And I had such a great visit to Wake Forest. They actually couldn't believe I didn't go there. And I had such a good time. I was like, oh my gosh, this would be such a great experience. I think I just couldn't. I loved Harvard. I loved it. I had been visiting Kate in college. I knew her friends, so there was a comfort level there. But also, it's really hard to turn down Harvard. And it's also like and I also knew, like, I remember this early on. I actually remember when Kate got in when I was a sophomore, and I was like, I actually remember in eighth grade, I didn't win the like top academic award at our eighth grade awards. And the girl who did was so driven to be valedictorian. I was like, I could drop everything else in my life and only focus on academics, and I still might not be valedictorian. I was like, or I could put my time and my energy into like something that's going to make me stand out and be a different kind of candidate. And then like kind of leverage that. So I remember pouring myself even harder into field hockey and even harder into orchestra and student government and all of the other things that every kid is doing now. But yeah, it's hard to turn down Harvard. Yeah.
Okay, so you get to Harvard, and Wake goes on to win three
consecutive national championships. It was so heartbreaking. Yeah. And it was like some of my teammates were just like, gotta be late every Tuesday because they're now like world-class surgeons. And I'm like, oh, you had lab and you had to go. And it's like, that was just the difference, the disparity between the best player at Wake and the last person off the bench was like just so minute. And, the disparity at Harvard was very, not only in skill, but in dedication was greater. So that was something I had to overcome just emotionally as a competitive person.
So you become captain. What year are you captain?
My senior year, I was captain, 2005. And we had a tough year.
You have a tough year, and you have a tough personality on the team.
Yes.
Tell us about what happened and how you worked through that.
Well, we lost a lot of games by 1 goal. That's how we worked through it. But that was we had graduated some pretty incredible talent. And actually one of the players the year before me is also a Hall of Famer. But also we had 3 or 4 really clinched players that year. And then the previous year was my sister's year, and that year was a powerhouse. So we knew we were up against a lot of challenges. We did have a little personality issue on the team, which was really difficult to manage, because where I fell on that was, I don't care, like, take that person off the field. I don't care if we lose every game without this all-star player. Because it was a bad energy.
So what were the attributes that she elicited?
I don't really know what was happening with her personally. I think there was a lot of things going on, and I don't think she liked school. I think she was like, this is not the right college for me, which is a huge part of, someone's, that first year of school is really hard. And I just think that she was in the wrong spot. And I think people don't think, and again, there's this like pressure, like if you get into Harvard, there's a pressure to go. And it's not the right spot for everybody at all. And, at my tutoring company now, we always are reminding people, like, you don't have to apply to the top 10 schools. There's so many great colleges in the United States. Like, find the one that's going to make you thrive personally. It doesn't have to be Ivy League. It doesn't have to be MIT. So I think that was a wrong fit. There's a lot of I think thought she was going to be like the social star of the team, and we had some really funny other personalities on the team that like everybody kind of gravitated towards. So like maybe not being the most popular, to be totally frank, I don't know. There was things going on. I did my best to be like a really soft place to land off the field, and be really supportive and check in frequently and make sure classes were going well or friendships, those outside friendships were going well, and she was feeling supported. But ultimately, I think that there was just some personal stuff going on that was translating to breaking some of the rules. Like, we don't drink before. You wouldn't go out to a party the night before a game, and we'd find out she did. And so things like that were just like really disrespectful to everybody else's commitment.
And did the coach know about it and played her anyway, or the coach ignored it, or the coach didn't know, or we don't know?
Gosh, to be totally honest, I don't remember.
Yeah. I bring it up because I'm coaching athletes now, and it even happens in high school, right? Where sometimes these kids now, because they're starting so young, this is like year 6 of them playing with the same, maybe not the whole team, but 2 or 3 or 5 players. And ultimately over time, there become issues, right? Like
Yeah.
one feels like I'm more dedicated, or I got recruited and she didn't, or so competitions, the parents
Oh
competing,
gosh,
like
yeah.
different personalities. But I think the point, and I love that you shared about it, because ultimately really all we have control over, each individual, is ourselves, right?
Right.
And when I think back to college, I remember we had an intervention on one of our athletes who was,
Wow.
had gotten, she was not allowed to drink before high school or before college, and got to college and just kind of went off the deep end, and
Oh
was a
yeah.
very good athlete and ridiculously bright, but had been on such a short leash for so long
Yeah.
that she just kind of went crazy. And it's interesting to look back, and again, you kind of only remember a few things, but also from your own perspective of, well, I had my own stuff, right? Like
Right.
whatever, I was struggling in that
Yeah.
class, or the boyfriend was being mean, or whatever. Like we all have our stories, but
Right.
controlling the controllables,
Right.
and letting the rest go is a theme for life.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you can only really be responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we did our best, and that was just how it was, how the cards fell that season, and it was tough.
So recently, I think the biggest honor that your sister nominated you to be inducted into the Harvard Hall of Fame, which I just think
Oh.
I read the letter that she wrote about you. And again, I talk about the 10 things that require zero talent a lot, which are
Yeah.
energy and effort and attitude and being early and being a good teammate. And we get caught up in, yeah, but that person
Yeah.
has, the coach's ear, and yeah, but they can jump faster or run faster or hit higher or whatever. And we forget about that. So here we are. You graduated in what, 04?
06. Yeah.
06. So we're almost 20 years on. Your sister writes a letter about you. And yes, there's some Ivy League this and Ivy League that. But the story is about what happened when she was injured. Could you tell that story?
Oh yeah, I mean, poor Kate. She's so competitive. Of all the three of us, she's definitely the most competitive. So she had like some cartilage injuries in her knee junior year, and she ended up missing the entire season. So like extra kudos to her, because she's also in the Hall of Fame. And managed to do it with 3 seasons. She was, when we would practice and play, she would be doing her rehab on the sidelines, or at the training at the trainer with the trainer. And she was, and it's funny, I don't even remember that story. She was doing her rehab at the side, and we were scrimmaging, and then we had a break. And sort of during the break, I went over and I just started doing, high knees or whatever she was doing, I was doing with her. And then all of our other teammates sort of noticed this, and I was just checking on her to see how she was doing, because I know she wasn't doing well that season. And then everyone else joined us, and we kind of all just rallied around Kate, and because I think she was having a hard time. It was awful. It was awful for her to watch everyone else play and not be able to. So,
and that is the definition of leadership, because leadership is not a title. It's not about being the most senior person on the team. It's about doing the little things that require zero talent.
Right.
Because you saw, and okay, yes, added bonus, it's your sister. So, okay, you probably have more empathy towards her than others.
Yeah.
But I'm guaranteeing, I pretty much can guarantee that probably wasn't the only person you did that for. Yeah, that's who you are.
That's true. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we used to have to do like running tests in high school, and when I'd finish, I'd go back to the starting line with whoever was, still doing their laps.
Yeah.
And try to, pick them up. Yeah. It makes a difference. It helps.
It does. There's a great viral video I just saw the other day, and it's the boys are all lined up on the third base line, and the coach is giving the speech for the end of the year, and this player has done this, and this player has done this, and the guy standing next to the kid is going, like, pointing at him, pick him, like he's just jumping up and down the whole time the coach is reading his accolades. And when the kid wins, you would have thought the one that was doing the pointing won. Like he was so happy for his buddy, right? It was like, I can guarantee you he will make any team he tries out for, right?
Yeah.
In life,
Yeah.
not just in baseball, because
Yeah.
that's what we all want. So I thank you for sharing that story. I know it's
Uh,
hard to talk about yourself, but it's nice
yeah.
that Kate shared that story, because
Yeah.
again, we don't remember what we said or did. Like, you
Hmm.
didn't remember that story, but
Right.
people remember how you made them feel.
Right. And it's really important. And like, yeah. And you know what? That team that year had a ton of camaraderie.
Which
That
ultimately
was my
is
freshman year. Yeah.
amazing. Well,
Hmm.
let's pivot. I want to talk about what you do today, because
Yeah.
you've used all of these tools to get to working with Michael. So maybe we could bring him on
Yeah, absolutely.
and talk about the Ivy, the Ivy method. Um,
Yeah, it's actually like a stunning amount of parallels to, so I just told Michael to come on in. Um,
awesome.
it's a stunning amount of parallels between the dedication it required to be an elite athlete and the dedication to do well on, standardized tests, on AP exams. It's really been, it's really been interesting to witness. And like, earlier I was talking about the age, how this is the age of instantaneity. Like, I think people are still used to just clicking a button or making a phone call, or we talk about parenting a lot. And I love this. Actually, what I love, your book's right here, by the way. What I love so much about your book is like just how to manage your role as a parent. Because so often there's such an overwhelming parent presence. Um, but your parent's not going to be in the room taking the ACT with you. Like, you have to do the work there. And they're not on the field with you. You have to do the work. So the parallels between what you put in as an athlete and what you put into test prep or what you put into your academics are unbelievably aligned.
Amazing. Yes, couldn't agree more. And when I talk about it, and I wrote about it in the first chapter, second chapter, about the parents doing the homework for my kindergarten, my first
Yeah.
grader, right? And all the moms doing the book report, and then
Hmm.
going, well, why? What does it matter? He's only 6. He
Right.
can't do that all by himself. And then the teacher laughing and saying, and some people don't think I can tell who did the work, and
Yeah.
and I don't mean it as a finger wag to you're a
Hmm.
horrible parent. I mean it as it's easy to jump in because we
Right.
can, and because we
Right.
want to, and we don't want to see them fail. And yes, we want them to have success. And we rob them of the opportunity to learn when, the globs of glue
Yeah.
and the crayon, and who knows if he ever read the book, but that's his journey, right? And I got to
Yeah.
allow him to do that versus,
Hmm.
well, I got an A on the test. I don't know what my mom wrote, right? Or an A on the
Oh,
book
yeah.
report, right? Like,
Hmm.
what do they get from that?
They don't,
Nothing, right?
I mean, you say it best in your book is like the messaging there is like, I don't think you can handle it. Someone to do it for you. I'm like, that's terrible messaging to children, to
Right? Yeah.
kids. You gotta build their confidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So welcome, Michael, Robin. It's so wonderful to have you on as well.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, for having us.
Yes, and this is such a great topic. And during COVID, actually, there's a group of 4 women, myself included. I take my puppy, and we hiked it because you weren't allowed to be in the parks or anything, but we would
right.
hike in the streets of Brentwood, um, and we probably spent, I don't know, but several hundred hours discussing college and which schools our kids were going to get into and what did it mean, and what is this if they don't get in here, and so I
Mhm.
would love the peek behind the curtain, because of course we as parents perseverate on all of that and project whether our kid's going to be successful or not based on those kind of things. So maybe we can start with you both talking about why you got into what you're doing and then what your mission is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Maybe
Michael, why
Michael
don't you
start.
start? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. No, so my career, give you the cliff notes. But I studied English at Harvard. Afterwards, I was a high school teacher. I taught 11th, 12th grade English and drama at a high school in New Haven. I was doing Teach for America, taught English internationally, and then I moved here to build this. And part of why Peyton and I built Ivy Method is that we wanted to give kids access to a level of support that did not, we're not interested in being a company that, there are, for lack of a better way of putting it, there are people out there you can find who will do it for the kid. And for us, it's about like, we want to give kids a set of tools and the best support possible so that they can have the confidence to do these things for themselves. I think one of the most heartbreaking things is when kids would come to us and they'd be so lacking in confidence because for so much of their lives, they'd been reliant on their parents or somebody else. There had been this sort of default expectation of somebody else doing the work for them, and building that muscle of how to approach a big project, how to approach a big test so that, they can do it themselves. Part of why we built this was to work ourselves out of a job, and with testing for us, a huge part of that is giving them a set of tools and strategies so that they can, so that there's both a planned approach to taking these exams, and we'll talk and get into sort of why they're important and how they're coming back in a moment. But also so that they can do just enough of that, but not so much so that they're spending their whole lives on it. Because the truth is that the testing is very important, and also it's not the most important thing. We want them to go off and be a kid. We want them to, we built Ivy Method to give them the support they need to hit their score metrics and then be done with testing, period. But I'll let Peyton speak a little bit more about her journey.
Yeah.
You've been speaking about
So
it, but,
yeah. So I actually started, so I studied the history of art and architecture in Spanish and at Harvard, but I actually didn't meet Michael there. We met in LA through some mutual friends. But I started volunteering at the Martin Luther King Jr. School in Cambridge. And that's what really crafted this love of, I think it was really the mentorship side of it. I really enjoyed that. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can make such a big difference with just empowering kids. Then moved to LA and I worked for all the big companies. And I was like, I quickly learned, we were talking about this earlier, Kirsten, like what you do, it's just as important to know what you don't want to do. I was like, I don't want to be part of a tutor mill. I don't want to be, sent into a kid's house to help them with something I'm not ready for, but this company's telling me I need to go do that. And I'm like, I'm not great at chemistry. I am great at test prep. I am great at essays. Like, so when Michael and I met, I think we were pretty excited at how aligned we were with our philosophy on education. So yeah, did all that stuff. Then I, was a tutor for a lot of fancy families, got flown all over the place. And Michael likes to joke, I signed a lot of NDAs. And then I tutored English when I was living in Chile and helped a lot of kids too, like gifted and talented programs. And then Michael and I built this, and it's been awesome because now Michael is my current teammate. And I've chosen so wisely.
Yeah, and I think we're very, we're very aligned in sort of how we approach this from a values perspective and a philosophy perspective, and also from sort of a grit and work perspective. Building a business is. I'm saying this as somebody. My sport was choir, and choir, it turns out, is a full contact sport because I actually broke my foot in a choir accident in high school. It's a whole thing. So I can't speak to teammates as well as Peyton can, but I think we have really found such a great, we work really, really efficiently and well together, and we're so aligned in terms of our goals for the business, which I think are different than maybe, other larger scale, big tutoring companies. We don't want to be that. We want to be, for me, it's about knowing the families, and it's about having seen, I have students who I saw them through their entire journeys from, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, all the way through high school into college. And those relationships and that development. And,
Right.
When you see a kid discovering themselves and sort of you see something click, you see suddenly something they thought they couldn't do and they realize they can do it, it's the most rewarding moment as an educator.
Michael, I love that you weren't an athlete, because the other thing that I talk about is it's not raising empowered athletes. It's take out athlete, put in artist, take out athlete, put in musician, take out athlete. Because again, exactly to what you're talking about, which is ultimately, I mean, give me a parent on the planet who says, yeah, I don't care if my kid's ever self-sufficient. No, like, right? Like the whole goal is to raise human becomings that it takes, I would think, take swings and go for it. Maybe
Yeah.
not always get what they want, but get to learn from it. And
Right.
that's really, I think, the opportunity that we have as doing the work you're doing and doing the work I'm doing is hopefully shining a light on. And again, I do it because, you know, not a sage from a stage, but a guide from the
Yeah.
From the
side. Like
side.
I'm going through it, right? I'm making
Hmm.
the errors. I'm sticking my foot in my mouth. I'm asking for do-overs, and I'm getting taught a lot by my kids who are saying, "Yeah, I got this. You don't need to be, you know, micromanaging me. I can do this on my own." And the pride that you see, there's a new book out. You probably have both read it. The Anxious Generation by
Oh
Jonathan
yeah.
Haidt, right? And him talking about I just saw a clip on it, and the little girl is, I don't know, 12, and she lives in the exact same city that her mom, I think it was the Bronx, lives in the exact same city the mom lives in. The mom remembers going to the grocery by herself when she was 6. Ironically, crime and everything was much worse when her mother was growing up than when she's growing up. Yet the mom won't let her out of the house without a phone, won't let her out of the house by herself. So they did an experiment, and the girl got to walk to the corner grocery and buy some groceries, like 3 items, and come home. And the look on her face, you would have thought she just won the lottery. You know, she's like, I am so proud of myself. I just can't believe, you know, something
Yeah.
as simple as going to the grocery store alone, right?
Right.
Who would have thought that we're at this place where our kids don't have any agency over
Hmm.
who they are? And I think where it starts is with academics. Like
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
we zoom in right away, and I think I may have shared this with you the last time we spoke. We were prepping for this, but you know, I have a client who's literally says the second she walks out of her math room, her dad
Oh
texts her.
yeah.
He's been in the portal. He already knows her score.
Yeah.
Like it's it's kind of scary, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very tough with academics to find a balance of supportive but not, sort of hovering or helicoptering,
Yeah.
that term. I mean, I think you have to, you want to hold your kid accountable to their classes and doing their assignments, but also like, I think it can, Peyton knows this, like, I came from an environment, I grew up in an environment
Yeah.
where everyone in my family, if you look at, and I grew up in a small town in New York, suburbs of New York City, same town as my cousins. And if you look at my cousins, my family, my aunt, uncle, 2 cousins, my brother and I, my parents, um, half of the people went to Harvard and half went to Brown. You know,
No,
and
no
except
pressure.
for my brother who went to Northwestern and he's a PhD now. He's a
Yeah.
professor and like he's the most sort of academic of all of us. And so Harvard was an expectation, and what that meant, it wasn't an expectation. Like I don't think I wouldn't, I don't think but it didn't feel like it was kind of like not that big of, like, it was sort of this thing that, like, yeah, sure, you could do that, it was, and so there was a lot of pressure and there was a lot
Yeah.
of involvement in my academic life in a way that, I learned, and felt at the time wasn't necessarily constructive.
Hmm.
Whereas certain support was, other support wasn't. And part of what we do as a company, and we do this with testing, we do this with all these different components, is help translate between parent and child so that the
Hmm.
essential information is being communicated from child to parent, but so that the parent doesn't have to be involved in the nitty gritty. Because the truth is, we're in an environment right now, where there's a lot of uncertainty and confusion about the college admissions
Admissions,
process.
yes.
There has been tectonic changes to admissions. You know this, over the past, since COVID, every single year there's something, at
Hmm.
first it was, these exams, they couldn't do testing because of the pandemic, so they shut it down. So everything went no testing, and they put the APs online, and that was an experiment. And
Yeah.
then last year, there was this massive Supreme Court decision which has changed the way affirmative action works, and it looks like now, which I think is a good thing. The state of Connecticut will be hopefully getting rid of legacy admissions. So that's a huge tectonic shift. And now we're in a landscape where, for years, the schools have been saying we are test optional, we're test optional, and parents have been told that, and it's been communicated to them through a variety of means and sources. Um, but for years, it hasn't been true.
Right.
It's sort of true, but in particular for elite schools, this test optional piece, it was one thing during the height of COVID when truly there was no ability to test safely. Then,
Hmm.
yeah, your scores were not required or expected, of course. But in the last handful of years, last couple of years, um, the truth is that if you applied to an elite school and you didn't submit scores, the schools would be making a negative inference about those scores. Oh, you
Mm.
didn't submit scores, therefore probably they weren't so great. And the
Yeah.
other thing is that you're applying to an elite institution or highly competitive school, you do the optional things. Even now, and schools are, by the way, reinstating these requirements.
Yeah.
Elite colleges are now moving back towards testing, but even and saying that and being explicit about it. But even the sort of competitive colleges that aren't being explicit about requiring testing, the truth is that testing, if you're trying to apply to a highly competitive college, 30% admit rate or less, it's just as optional as like a showcase or expo would be for an elite athlete, which is like,
Yeah.
it's not really optional. Like you want to go somewhere,
Yeah.
that's highly competitive, you do the unoptional things. I did a ton of music when I was in high school. That was a huge part of my application. But I also spent an entire summer doing sleep research on like rapid eye movement density for, with respect to kids who have bipolar versus ADHD. And as an adult, I don't even know if I understand. I don't know now exactly what that was. Like, I don't remember what that. I don't think it was.
I always joke that
But it
Michael's brain
sounds
is an elite
really.
athlete.
It was really impressive. I know that it was impressive, and I was really into it at the time, and it's sort of faded. The truth is that for elite schools, with the exception of the
Right.
UC system, you're going to have to test, and if you're going to have
Hmm.
to test, you want to plan for that. You don't
Right.
want to. Um, there's a way to approach the SAT and ACT that is intentional and thoughtful and that minimizes the sort of um, you know uh, annoyance of this process, because the truth is we know it stinks. Like
Yeah.
it's not
It's
fun
not
to have to do
fun.
this. It's
Yeah.
not
We
it's
try
like
to make it
we're gonna
fun.
make it as fun. We're gonna make it as fun as possible, and we're also going to we want to give kids tools that they're going to use on these tests, but also that are going to be relevant for them, that are in terms of being
Right.
college ready, and they're going to be relevant
Yes.
for them in their academic classes. Test taking strategy can be universally applicable. But the best way to get the most out of the process and to move through the process with greatest efficiency is to be intentional and to start planning early and to sort
Hmm.
of start thinking about it this summer before junior year and sort of planning it around junior year.
Hmm.
The additional complexity we're dealing with is, we're in this environment where schools are moving back towards testing, and that is maybe not a good thing, but at least they're being honest about it. The
Right.
problem is that as schools are moving back towards testing, and this is something that Peyton and I have been like tearing our hair out over,
I know.
the SAT has gone digital, right? And this digital SAT, the first full implementation of it was this past March, just a little more than a month ago, just about a month ago, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, it went okay, but not great. And we
Hmm.
really are not big. We can't recommend kids take this test. We're not big fans of it. It's modular and
Yeah.
adaptive, which means that for there's a handful of issues we have. One of them is that you go in, you take this thing. If you have a little anxiety, you're a little shaky at the beginning of the test, you don't do well in the first section, that means that section you don't perform as high, you get pushed into an easier second module. Your score is capped at about
Yeah.
600, give or take, right?
And you know
um,
it. It's pretty
you know it.
obvious.
You cannot right the
Yeah.
ship. The questions are so much easier, and
Hmm.
halfway through the test, sometimes less than halfway through the test, that you tanked. And so how well are you going to do in that second module when you know you
Right.
messed up the first one? It's not a good thing developmentally for kids. We also don't like the digital format because developmentally, looking at a screen, then paper, then screen, then paper. It's
Hmm.
very hard, and for kids to keep track of information, and it's very easy to lose information. All of the college readiness skills we teach, all of the essential test taking skills that are also really important for college, like how to annotate, how to organize your work clearly, how to sort of circle a text and mark up a text so that you can find essential information and use it to efficiently answer questions, requires pencil to paper. And I know I sound like such a Luddite when I say these things, but this is, we just see kids perform better on paper
Right.
exams. In addition
It's
to
not
all
just
of the,
us.
no,
There's a lot of
it's
research that
everyone.
supports
There's,
that. Yeah.
tons of research that supports it. And of course, on top of all of that, there were computer glitches, right? So you
Yeah.
walk into a digital exam, you've prepped,
Uh,
you've done all the work. Middle of the test, your screen goes white. You lose a few minutes, or you're told, okay, well, it glitched, so you can retake it for free next weekend. Who wants to do that?
nobody.
So
Yeah. Nobody wants to do that.
so our strong recommendation, for now, this may change, but our recommendation for now is to take the paper ACT, which is, it's the sort of last holdout in terms of you can take it on paper, you
Hmm.
should take it on paper.
Hmm.
There is a digital ACT, do not
Don't
take
take
that
that one.
one. And to sort of plan for and approach this process from the perspective of, I'm going to take the paper ACT, I'm going to prep the paper ACT and learn those strategies, and those will be both useful to me for this test and for my entire academic career. That's the
Hmm.
way we think of just going about this most efficiently. And we want kids to maximize their score in the shortest amount of time possible, and then go off and do other things.
Yeah.
We love saying goodbye to kids, even when
Yeah.
parents come to us and say, "Oh, he got a 33. We want to try for the 35." No, go do something else. Go
Go play
focus
field
on your
hockey.
sport.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I do have a friend who that's what they tried. They kept trying to get 1 point up, and they did it 6 times. Like,
Yeah.
where's the law of
Oh,
diminishing
No.
returns?
yeah.
No.
How often will you actually get, you know, that return on investment?
Yeah, and it's possible, but it's not, depending on what you're trying to. It's usually not worth it.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
We like
So
to
Yeah.
there
think of
is
these.
no,
Oh,
sorry, there is
no,
no paper SAT at all right now. You
it's
cannot
gone.
take it.
Gone.
You
Yeah.
cannot. It's over. And this is ultimately, this is about market share. This is about business. The digital SAT, part of it is it's shorter. So
Hmm.
that is attractive. And this is a generation of kids who are very comfortable with technology, and they're very used to it. And
Right.
there's um, there's sort of a, ooh, it's the cool hot new thing, the digital SAT. It's and so I think they're trying to. I mean, not I think, like, the SAT is always changing themselves to steal market share from ACT, and they've done it, I don't know, last 20 years, like 4 or 5 times, maybe
Hmm.
4 times now.
Hmm.
But yeah, we can't, like, we would
Not
avoid
in
it,
good conscience.
and until when the ACT goes fully digital, then we can have a conversation about which test to
Yeah.
take. But we hope that that doesn't happen.
And is there a feedback loop going back to SAT? I would assume, with if people up in
Yeah.
arms about it.
Yeah, oh,
Okay.
yeah. You can go on a Reddit boards and see what the kids are saying about their experiences, and like a lot of people are like, here's the form that you send to the college board with your file your official complaint. So we know that they are getting feedback, and also, like, to their credit, they are working really hard to make
Yes.
this. The test questions and the way they've redesigned the test. We actually really like
Yeah.
the redesign, but we just don't like the modular or the online.
Yeah.
We don't like the modular adaptive, and we don't like that it's online.
It is
But they
the
are getting some
best.
feedback. So
Yeah, it's very
yeah.
much this weird. Sorry to interrupt you, Peyton. It's
Okay.
we've sort of repeatedly said it's the best designed SAT we've ever seen in
Yeah.
terms of the questions, the design, like the things they put in, the organization of it. It's so student friendly in every respect, except for the modular adaptive nature of
Right.
it, and the fact that, like, there were these technical glitches, which we
Right.
knew would happen, because even when there wasn't a digital exam, the last time they transitioned to SATs in, like, I think it was 2015, 16,
Hmm.
there were glitches then too, just with the information being given to the proctors about timing, but I had students then who had when there's a transition, there are always problems, because
Right.
information just, it's done at such a large scale. Information about how to administer this test
Hmm.
isn't always disseminated in the most efficient way. They've done, like, a much better job with this digital exam. The digital ACT, that implementation of the ACT is horrible. Zero thought was put into it, and we've had a very difficult time getting information from the ACT folks about what they were trying to do there, because even the practice exam for the digital ACT is broken. Like there
Yeah.
are technical glitches in the
And there's one.
practice exam, and there's only
Right.
one.
Right.
The digital SAT, a ton of thought was put into it, a ton of
Mm-hmm.
research. We have these problems. We hope that there is a time in the future when we're able to recommend it and be like, look, okay, now it makes sense. Now they've implemented this in a way where it really truly makes sense to take it.
So I wanted to shout out to you and your website. So I went on and watched on ivymethod.com, right?
Yes.
Ivy Method Tutors.
Tutors.com.
Ivy Method Tutors, sorry. Okay, ivymethodtutors.com. Go on there, and I watched the one on test prep anxiety. And so thinking about, I mean, I was like, this is exactly what I do with athletes. So the correlation between getting ready for a performance and getting ready to take a test, the exact same things. And then to your point about if you now have a test that is adjusting over time, I mean, it's kind of like, okay, now you're down 20 points, but keep shooting, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And
good.
Mentally,
Yeah.
what that does to you, I mean, if you already have anxiety to begin with going in to take the test, and now you see that you've been handicapped, and then what does that do to you able, not only recovering in that moment, which you can't, but then the next time deciding before you even start that it's going to go poorly, right?
Yeah. I mean, the teenage brain is still rapidly changing. It's just, it's kind of inappropriate for where they're at in their cognitive development.
So I know you love the tutoring part of it, right?
Yeah.
So the other part I would love to talk about is this AP business. So if we're all getting ready for test prep too, and I get clients too are like, well, my kid's playing travel this and travel that, and then should they be doing 5 APs? Like, what do you advise on where is the thinking now with how important that is as far as a defining factor in them getting in to set themselves apart?
So here's the unsatisfying answer to that question, or an unsatisfying answer that I wouldn't say is a perfect answer, because there are no perfect answers. But we're in an increasingly competitive, like every year it feels like the most competitive admission cycle ever. So I think if a student is, and this is not something I can speak to too much, but I think Peyton and you can speak to this much more.
Yeah.
If a student is like an athlete getting recruited, heavily, that can change the equation. But the first thing colleges are looking at, the most important thing, and this has pretty much always been true in recent history, is good grades and rigorous classes, right? You want kids to take the most rigorous classes they can possibly take and get good grades in them. And, I remember years ago, this is maybe even when I was applying to college, being in a Stanford admissions thing. And, one of those, they come to campus, they speak to you, and someone asked, is it better to get an A in a regular class or a B in an AP class? And the admissions officer said, it's better to get an A in an AP class. And it's so unsatisfying.
It's better to get an A in AP.
Like, there's like nothing, nothing
That's mean.
about that. It's a very mean answer. And I hate the way that admissions officer put it.
Yeah.
And also, the truth is, if you're going to apply to, Stanford was at the time, I think, and is now the most competitive college in the country. If you're applying to highly, highly, highly competitive schools with admit rates of under 10, under 7, under 5%, those AP classes are going to matter, But it also depends on the kid and the context. And we also love to talk, there's 3,000 colleges in America.
Right.
There's a college for your kid. If your kid is not a kid who should be taking 5 APs because that's not them, then don't do that. It's so much more important to us as a company in terms of working with kids. And I think it's important to parents in terms of thinking about this process as you're trying to find a fit, you're trying to find somewhere where your kid can thrive in every respect. And the truth is, if a kid is taking 5 APs and just drowning, they're setting themselves up to go to a college where they're also going to be drowning and not happy.
Right. And Kirsten, we were just talking about this, like your daughter just committed to LMU, and it's like, because it's the right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
So
That's so
exciting.
because it's right fit for her. It matters a lot. I will tell you. So my sister, I mentioned my sister Tina is the head field hockey coach at Tufts, and she says the number one piece of information and feedback she gets from admissions from is this kid doesn't have enough rigor. And it like, and this is her, maybe her top recruit. So even if you are a star athlete and you do have this other component that makes you a very attractive candidate for colleges, you still need this piece. It's really difficult to balance that with the amount of commitment that goes into athletics or music or whatever the other things that you're doing. But I do know that that's the feedback that coaches get all the time is rigor matters. So.
Yes. And to your point, Michael, which I totally agree with, my two boys who were both, it wasn't about intelligence. It was about the frontal lobe being so wide open that,
Yeah.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me at 14. I don't care. Right. Well, dude, it's going to matter to you in 3 years when you're applying to college. Right. It took them both till like middle of their sophomore year. And actually, even my daughter says that I like my jaw was on the floor, and we laugh about it now. But, when she was like, well, my grades aren't as good as so-and-so. And I said, why do you think that is? She goes, well, nobody ever told me that grades were important. I was like, right. So which dinner table conversation did you miss? But, again, we're all open to receive the feedback when we're ready to receive it. And
Yes.
to your point, Michael, there are over 3,000 colleges. Where you go is not who you'll be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're only set on applying to those, I mean, the mistake here in Los Angeles I see is I feel like everybody applies to the same 30
Yes.
schools. And then it was, we're not getting in anywhere. What do you mean we're not getting it? A, it's her or him.
Yeah.
And B, why are you applying there? Like there's some schools that like they have no business even looking at, and then they're upset when they don't get in. Or we ED'd to that school, and they, one ED'd and I didn't get in, and my life is over. Like, like that is too much pressure.
It is too much pressure. There's so much pressure on kids, on teenagers today.
One of my big things about this process, when people come to us, when we're getting into it, and this isn't, we're not, we are a tutoring company. We're not college admissions counselors. I mean, I'm sure you and Peyton talked about that. Like we have partners that do that, but we're locked in on the test prep, the tutoring, the one-on-one work. But we're seeing kids through all of the phases, and we are doing one-on-one work on college essays and prepping for interviews. And a big part of, for us, the excitement about the college process for us is like the process of self-discovery. I think about this less as, hey kid, go out there and shop for a college, and more, hey kid, who are you? Like, what do you care about? What are you into? What gets you excited? I love to say to kids, where do you lose time? Like, where do you lose track of time? Where are you so absorbed in something that you have no idea what time it is? Hours could go by, and you're just in this thing because you love it so much. And inevitably, someone's like playing video games, and I'm like, I know, me too. But that's not. You can't study that in college. And
I think you can now. I think you can make a career doing that, but we don't encourage
yeah, it's true.
our students to do that.
But it's very much about that. Like we always recommend. There's a book I adore called The College Match. And it's sort of,
who wrote that?
Oh gosh, what's his name?
We know. Sorry, we can look it up, but it'd be good to have him.
The College Match. Let me find it for you.
Because I do have people asking all the time.
No, it's,
we can send you a list actually of our favorites.
Okay. I really like Lauren Pope's book as well.
Yeah, Lauren Pope. That's what I was thinking of.
That's Colleges That Change Lives.
That Change Lives. Yeah.
College Match. I can't remember his name. But that book, it's less. Obviously we use things like the Fisk Guide and directories and things like that, but College Match is more like, it's like if you took one of those magazine surveys, or I guess they do them on Instagram. I don't know if kids do these things on the internet. I don't know if it's a thing anymore, but those old school magazine surveys where you'd sort of fill a bunch of things out and then it would tell you something about your personality or whatever. It's kind of like that, except for college, right? And it's about identifying, like, it asks you a ton of questions And those questions don't necessarily you wouldn't necessarily immediately think, oh, this question is about this thing or that thing. There's maybe like 100, 150 questions. You go through and score them, and then it shows you, based on those answers, what you really should be paying attention to. It doesn't tell you, oh, this is the exact school or that's the exact school, but it says, here are the things that seem to matter to you. And when you go look at colleges, when you go on a college tour, ask about those things, pay attention to those things, because that's who you are. That's going to get you to a college, to apply to the colleges where you're going to really have a good time,
Right.
And learn the most.
Yeah, finding your fit, and whether you're an athlete or not, and I call it the broken leg test. Like, you got to
Yes.
know that you go there whether you can play or not, whether you get cut or not,
Yeah.
whether the coach leaves or not.
Love
And
that.
again, same, you've got to see yourself there. And
Yes.
I don't remember which book it was, but one of Malcolm Gladwell's interviews, and that's what he talked about. Like, you're going to be far more successful if you just love staying up at night talking about molecular biology with those 5 people who also love molecular biology, right? And maybe it's the number 50 school, but you found your group and your people to thrive with, then,
Yes.
well, I have to go to the highest ranked school, because, ultimately, whoever comes out on the top of whatever level of school, those are the ones that are going to be able to then move on to the next job, or move on to the next, level of education, if that's what their path is. And finding that where you can, in 18 to 22, grow and learn about who you are. And Peyton and I were just having that discussion about my daughter. She thinks she wants to go into film, which is amazing. She's doing a lot of research, interviewing people she knows that, or we know as a family. At 20, she may be like, this is not for me. And I can be like, awesome, because I studied Japanese and I had nothing to do with it after college. And her dad studied kinesiology and he's a marketing guy. So like, it isn't necessarily, yes, there are some people who are very fortunate, and at 12, they see, an astronaut and they're going to the moon, and that's incredible. And most of us are wayfinding and figuring it out, and we're creating it and we're inventing ourselves. And that's kind of what makes it fun. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I would like to think that's maybe how I rationalize it, but I think that's part of the journey, is the discovery.
This whole generation too has, by necessity and also just sort of, I think by circumstance, like they're so entrepreneurial. They're so good at sort of like finding and paving paths that none of the rest of us can see. I think that the freedom that a college where you feel held by the school in all of the ways affords you, it's amazing.
Wonderful. This is amazing. We could go on. You guys have jobs, but I want to ask you a question. I'm going to have Peyton answer it from an athlete's mindset. I'm going to have Michael answer it from an academic mindset. We ask all of our guests this to finish this. It can be a word, it can be a phrase. You can go on for 10 minutes. I don't care. But what is your response to the best athletes I know do this? Peyton, how would you finish that statement? The best athletes I know do this.
Best athletes I know have a positive mindset.
Amen.
Right? That's it.
It's that easy, right?
It's a can-do, like a belief.
Yes. The best academics, the best students I know do this.
I think there's probably a lot of answers, and as Peyton knows, I can go on at length about many of them. But I think the best answer I can give is that the best students I know ask questions. And the
They're
best
curious.
students I know are intensely curious.
Yeah.
And rather than, the inverse of sage on the stage versus guide on the side, I think is from a student perspective. The best students I know are always learning and want to be always learning. And some of the best students I know are actually teachers, because they want to be, you sort of realize that you can't know all the things. You always, it's the lifelong learning thing. But yeah, I think that curiosity comes across, Peyton may have mentioned I used to do interviews for admissions for Harvard. It comes across so clearly in an interview. When a kid is genuinely curious and passionate versus a kid is like, oh, I did this because I thought it would be good for college.
Look at my resume.
Red flag.
And I had someone explicitly say that to me once, and I was like, I can't. You just said the quiet part out loud,
Yeah.
But even when they don't say that explicitly, you can tell, versus the asking of questions, the wanting
Right.
to know more, the leaning in, the sort of the glow in someone's face when they discover
Mhm.
something they didn't know existed and now want to learn all the things about it. And they're spending all their free time on Reddit diving into that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's great.
I have a client like that right now. I think she's in 8th grade, freshman, but like every time I get on, she's like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Like she just like
Yeah.
she's taking
So into it.
like she's so into it. She's like,
Yeah.
okay, and I'm supposed to, and you can feel it. Like every time I jump on with her, it's like this is going to be such a fun hour because
Yes.
you're just peeling back the onion, right? Like you're just
Yes.
like, okay,
Mhm.
what are we going to learn today? And it's like,
Yep.
and it's not about perfection, and it's not about that you have all the answers. It's just about
Mhm.
curiosity.
Yeah. And when it comes from the kid, it's like,
Oh, it's the
that
best.
is the best. Yeah, it really is.
Like
Yeah.
you go, oh, she's gonna be fine.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
you just
You
don't
do.
worry about those kids at all. You're like, honey, I don't want to tell you, but you don't need me. Like you're
Yeah.
good, right? But those are the ones that go for,
Mhm.
they want the tutoring, they want the coaching because that's how they're wired, which is really a beautiful thing. Lovely. All right. So let's end by tell everybody where they can find you, because I know there's plenty of people listening that are, a couple steps where they're, maybe a year or two out from going through the whole college process, but are raising, again, maybe they have middle schoolers or high schoolers now.
Yeah, we are at ivymethodtutors.com. Our email is info@ivymethodtutors.com. And, we're super supportive. We're here to support. So if you have any questions, give us a call and, just reach out no matter what. We specialize in test prep, college essays. Michael and I still do ourselves and geek out really hard over those. And really, we empower students to achieve all of their academic goals and their vision. So we're really excited. And we want to meet you.
Yeah. And
Michael, do you have anything to add?
No, I was gonna say you can 323-451-9202 is the phone number. You can always
I
try
always
us
forget
there
that.
too. I know. Who uses phones these days?
I know.
I know. What is that? Yeah.
Like you can actually text us on that line.
You can text us.
Say it again. What's the number?
323-451-9202.
I love that. And that's what I think as a parent, I'm looking for connection and I'm looking for resources to help.
Yeah.
And I think once you get on the phone with you and like, oh, we can come up with a plan. Like,
Yeah.
then I can relax. And then my kid can relax, and then we can enjoy the journey, because that's what this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be
100%.
an enjoyable journey. And we only get 18 summers with them. So, then, my oldest came back for dinner last night, and you would have thought like there was a rock star in my house. But I was like, oh, he's here. Like I was just so excited to spend a couple hours with him, right? It's like, that's really cool when they do come back, because they just want to hang with you for an hour. It's like, okay. That's
You're like you're making me cry right now. I'm like, my kid's gonna go to college. He's 20 months, but I'm like already like he's gonna leave me
someday. Meg Ryan, I'll be 40. Awesome. Well, this has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much for taking time. Parents, please like and follow and reach out to Peyton and Michael and get your questions answered. And let's all hold hands. When we know better, we do better. So let's enjoy the ride.
Kirsten, thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Hey, Raising Athletes podcast fans, Kirsten here, and I have to share my new favorite hydration secret with you. Corvives Hydrate in pink lemonade. If you're looking for the ultimate hydration boost, this is it. Corvives Hydrate is an NSF certified for sport, trusted by 4 Major League Baseball teams and 3 military bases. With 6 grams of pure organic cane sugar, it ensures you absorb all the electrolytes you need. And get this, it has 3 times the electrolytes and 4 times less sugar than those leading brands. Plus, it's developed using the World Health Organization's standards for oral rehydration solutions, making it the equivalent of a bag of IV fluids. Best of all, there are no artificial dyes or sweeteners. It's so perfect for the entire family. You can drink it any time of day, before, during, or after workouts or sports. So say goodbye to sugary juices and hello to superior hydration with Corvives Hydrate in pink lemonade. Visit corvive.com. That's CORVIVE.com and use promo code Kirsten. That's KIRSTEN for 30% off your order. Try it today and feel the difference. Kirsten and Matt here to chat about Peyton McDavitt. And one of the fun things I think about doing this podcast for me over the last 5 years has been learning about other sports that I knew nothing about. When I got to William & Mary, there was a field hockey and a lacrosse team. And of course, coming from Montana and then San Diego, I'd never heard of either of those basically, but started to get to know who some of those girls were and how athletic they were. So in talking to Peyton, it was just fun to hear her experience playing at Harvard, becoming a Hall of Famer, and then how she has transferred those skills, into a career that she's able to, again, create a life she loves by working from home. And again, all of the skill sets that she already obviously used, which made her successful on the pitch and at Harvard, have made her, a really great coach and tutor. So she was awesome to talk to.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed, especially I've just finished being captain of a team myself. And one of the most important pieces of being a captain is watching out for the people that nobody's really paying attention to. Sometimes not even the coach. And those are the ones you really have to look out for because they can really fly under the radar. And she told a story about her sister or one of her players who had a knee injury coming over. She was always one that came over and checked on her. And those injured players are oftentimes the backbone of the team. And people don't really realize that is they can be the people who can stay level-headed and can stay, when the vibes are completely down, they're the ones who kind of pick you back up because they don't have as much in it. So just for her to pick up on that shows why she's such a great leader and such a great coach for me. And
her EQ is super high. So we talk about IQ, which is book smarts, but being an athlete with a high EQ, that's your emotional quotient, your emotional understanding of, and granted it was her sister that was sitting on the sidelines, but apparently her sister said that I wasn't the only one that she did this for, but it shows her being in touch with, and as you said, as a captain, like to I don't know, 25 girls on the team, it'd be easy to just, be focused on you and we need to be winning. So I got to be focused on only the ones that can participate. But to be as inclusive as to always be checking on her sister and making sure she was okay shows me what kind of leader she is.
Yeah, and she sounds like she was always the person looking out for the little guy and paying attention to the people that, it's a team's a team. And whether you're playing every minute of every game or not, you have to be paying attention to every single person because every person's emotions ends up getting wrapped up in it. And it's typically the person who's not playing who's going to be most unhappy that's going to cause the cancer of the team. So how do you address those cancers in a team when you're working with teams or with individual athletes? Yeah,
good question. When I just work with 2 different volleyball teams this week, actually, and get much younger, but identifying that we each have a role. And sometimes it's not the role that you think you deserve or for sure the role you want if you're on the sidelines. But if you're that person on the sidelines that's decided to pout or be negative or talk badly about your teammates, there's no way that team will win in spite of you if that becomes the general norm on the team. And that was one of the teams I was working with, was they were all back talking behind each other's backs. And I was like, well, how did the tournament go? And they're like, we lost every game. Shocker, right? So again, parents who are listening or kids who happen to be listening and really want to play at the next level, I can't stress enough how important it is that the one thing that you have a control over, which is your own attitude, your own effort, your own willingness to do the thing that you may not want to do, which would be pick up the water bottles or high five the teammate or cheer loudly, even though you know you're not going to get in the game. That shouts about what your character is, which is what every coach, every boss, every teacher, every person who's getting into a relationship wants to see, right? You want to see somebody who's able to think just not about themselves, but about the greater good.
Yeah, and being able to put their ego aside, and those are the moments you really notice in a person when they're the ones on the sidelines who have, I've seen guys get cut and they become from a team and become the biggest supporter of the team. And those are the people that, I will never forget. And it's the ones that are the exact opposite, that get the minutes and take them for granted and still pout and still say it's this and that. And those are the ones I wish I could forget, but I won't. And if they ever come calling asking me for help or want me to be putting them on a team that I'm on in the future, you don't forget those things. And, it makes you not want to roll the dice on them.
That's a good point. I remember for both of the boys at Loyola, a couple of the boys that got cut from the basketball team and signing up to be the manager. And to me, that is the highest level of maturity, because to say, okay, maybe I'm not going to be able to compete, but then I'm still going to be all in and be supportive, that I just want to be around it, that I just want to be a part of the group. And those managers were like so integral to, again, their success as a team, because that feeds into the culture that you're going to have.
Yeah. And those managers can sometimes be the most important people. And it's not a role that I think people should really take all that lightly, because when you have a good manager who really wants to be there and really is there just because of all the right intentions, they end up not doing as much work because guys or girls on the team are like, I'm not going to make this really good person do this. But I've had managers that are clearly just there to hopefully get into the team and don't have the best attitude about it, and are really just looking for their moment for someone to get hurt or to hop into training or something. And those are the ones that, guys are going to throw their waters at when they're on the field, or not really give the time of day to, and it makes it a lot harder to respect them. So.
Oh, so fun to talk to Peyton, and so inspired by her. And I love that she's now paying it forward by coaching and tutoring others, because I think anybody who wants to use Ivy Method tutors is going to get a huge bonus just by having somebody that has that type of mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for what she has to come.